Hi, in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about why I choose to paint the subjects that I choose, and I'm talking about this more in terms of the skills that I want to develop rather than the kind of emotional reasons why I might choose them. I've been painting really all of my life, but more formally for the last 15 years since I started art college. Although that practice has been quite sporadic and a little bit broken up because during my time at college and university, I was studying other disciplines as well. I was doing sculpture, video performance, ceramics, all kinds of things really. So the painting hasn't necessarily been consistent. But really from when I started college, I was interested in quite experimental styles. I was keen to try out different techniques because I really wanted to find my own style. I really admire artists who have a very defined sense of what they do and their kind of look. When you can tell just by looking at a painting from a distance that it's done by a certain artist, I think that was something that I wanted in my own practice, but became gradually aware that that's a lifelong process, reaching that point, and it's part of the fun and part of the creative journey that you don't arrive there too quickly. I went through a phase at university where I would only ever apply paint with the stick end of the paintbrush. I never used the bristles. This was quite good because it made me a lot less precious about my work. It made me a lot less worried about everything having to be perfect. You have a lot less control when you use the stick rather than the bristles. As interesting as it was, generally when I'm painting now, I do tend to use the bristle end of the brush. Working like that also led me to work in quite thick paints like acrylics, and also quite heavily used emulsions when I was at university, purely because they were much cheaper. And acrylic still now is my paint of choice. It's generally what I use in my painting practice. One of the things that drew me to portraiture, portraiture makes up the bulk of the painting that I do, and certainly the majority of work that I sell is portraits. One of the things that drew me to work in portraits wasn't just my personal love of traditional portrait painting. I love paintings from the 16th, 17th, 18th century of very, very highbrow portraiture. It wasn't just that drew me towards it, but it was sort of partly wanting to train myself out of what I perceived as a bad habit in the way I was drawing. I remember constantly being pulled up in life drawing classes about the way I was actually using line work in my drawing. So I tend to lean towards using very, very thick lines where there aren't necessarily very thick lines. And what I mean by this is, if I was drawing a person's arm, I was tending to put a very, very thick, usually black line, defining where their arm was. And as accurate as the line might have been in the shape that it took, it was forever being pointed out to me that actually human beings are not defined by a black outline. That the thing that defines the space that we take up is the three-dimensional nature of the body. It's the three-dimensional plane of the arm, not the fact that there's a line around it. So this painting actually gives quite a good example of this. If you can see here, the arm is defined by a very thick black line showing the shape, and as much as it might be right, it might be the line that was the line of the arm. If this was a three-dimensional person, I think this was taken from a statue, it wouldn't have had a line around it. It would simply have been the form that defined it, not an outline. So by choosing portraiture, and if I use this one here just as an example, I hope that by focusing on organic form, like human beings, like people's faces, it would push me towards moving away from the line work and developing something that was a sort of softer use of paint and sort of softer shadows rather than defined lines. So if we look at the face here, we can see that I have got a line defining where the chin is, to show that the face is different from the neck, but rather than it being a sort of line that looks like I might have drawn it with a marker pen, hopefully it's softer, hopefully it's a little bit more graduated, and it's showing more the distance between the top of the face and then the neck underneath with the shadow falling on it. Obviously when you're painting people like these people with very fair skin, and dark hair, you are inevitably going to get some quite strong line work because you're going to get lines for the eyebrows, eyelashes, eyeliner, things like that, and obviously the hair. So line work plays a part still in the work that I do, but hopefully I'm moving towards it being more about kind of graduation of tone, trying to show the planes of the face rather than just the outline. So that was kind of what I was hoping to achieve with my portraiture. Obviously, it's still an ongoing process. This painting here is almost pushing me back in the opposite direction. This is a painting of a hotel, so it's an architectural theme rather than organic, and it's lots and lots of geometric shapes, lots of line work. And I thought this would just kind of challenge me to work in a very different way from what I kind of developed with my portraits. It's at the stage now, all of my paintings have this stage, and I've noticed this every time I've done a step-by-step or I've done sort of photographing each stage. They go through a sort of point where I think, oh, I'm really not sure how it's going to turn out and if I'm going to be happy with it. So it remains to be seen how this one develops. I'm hoping that it's going to come together and be a painting that I feel really pleased with. And if not, it's actually enough for me to have worked on it and to have developed a little bit more creatively. So even if the end result of what you do isn't perfect, then you don't want to hang it on your wall, it doesn't necessarily mean it was time wasted, because you will have gained enormously in your own creative practice just by going through the process of creating that painting.